Hello, my name is Andy Seathern. I'm the Senior Instructor of Combat Fusion Martial Arts. Well, welcome to this first of our new series of info pods on the techniques of the Kenpo syllabus. We will be starting with the orange belt syllabus and the technique clutching feathers. We will be looking at this technique in a breakdown basis and exploring some of the concepts and principles contained within it. We will also be exploring the extension. So if you don't require this at your stage of training, you may wish to bypass that part. We will also explore the techniques in different scenarios, different environmental settings later on in the video. Also, please remember these are just the views of Combat Fusion Martial Arts. You may find that they are different from what you already know or what your instructor will teach you. So please use these videos as a guideline, not as gospel to your training. So, with that being said, we'll get into the technique now and we will review it first from 3 different perspectives, slowly, without a partner. The technique clutching feathers receives its title from the initial attack. The hair of the head in Kenpo is termed feathers, and the attacking hand grasps or clutches at the hair, hence the name clutching feathers. As the attack is initiated, the primary defense is to check your opponent's attacking hand with your rear hand, as you begin to step back into a right neutral bow. This defensive check presses the attacking hand to your head. The result is to restrict your opponent's ability to use this weapon and to reduce the pain and discomfort from the hair grab. Additionally, the forearm of the checking arm also acts as a temporary shield against a potential follow-up attack to your head. When checking your opponent's grasp, position your fingertips to grip along the little finger side of your opponent's hand. This can result in an unintentional wrist lock to your opponent when settling into your stance by utilizing the mass of your body as a single unit. In conjunction with the stepping back into a neutral bow and the application of the checking hand, the initial counter-strike is a single knuckle or dragon's eye strike to the brachial plexus of nerves in our opponent's armpit area. This strike should impact its target at the moment you settle into your stance and should travel from its point of origin. Do not be tempted to cock your weapon away from its point of origin before the application of the strike itself. The weapon used is, as previously stated, the single knuckle of the long finger of the hand, or a single knuckle strike. This employs the concept of pinpoint effect, where the backup mass behind the strike is concentrated onto the small area of the knuckle, thereby increasing the effort to effect ratio. Following on from the single knuckle strike, bring your striking fist to the inside of your opponent's attacking arm. At this point your fist should be clenched but turned palm towards your face. From this position, pivot into a forward bow as you execute an outward extended block along the inside of your opponent's arm as you simultaneously deliver a thrusting heel palm to your opponent's face with your checking hand. This move creates frictional drag along the inside of your opponent's attacking arm, causing him to turn, lean forward and create borrowed force to increase the impactive value of the thrusting heel palm. Please remember that these moves are being broken down stage by stage, and this movement would be actioned as one complete sequence. As your opponent reacts from the heel palm to his face by trying to regain his balance and attempt to acquire you again in his line of sight, immediately pivot back into a neutral bow, delivering an inward hammer fist to your opponent's head, impacting as you settle into your stance. When targeting the head with your hammer fist, aim for dead center of your opponent's head. As we are using a path of action here, should your opponent attempt to move back, you will hit the nose with your knuckles, or should he move forward, you will impact the jawline with your forearm. This gives you a greater margin for error. In this next section, we shall be analysing the extension to clutching feathers. We will begin looking at the clutching feathers extension by analysing the working relationship of the first 4 moves. From the inward hammer fist to our opponent's head, we pivot away into a reverse bow to deliver a downward hammer fist to our opponent's groin whilst checking at face level with our free hand. This is then followed up by pivoting back to a neutral bow, delivering an outward hammer fist to our opponent's face. Continue to pivot into a forward bow to deliver a vertical punch to our opponent's solar plexus with our rear fist, as our lead hand checks horizontally below this punch. Follow on, moving towards our opponent with a front crossover to deliver an inward elbow strike with an inward horizontal heel palm to our opponent's jaw. The hammer fist to the groin causes our opponent to react by leaning forward as he protects himself. Take advantage of this reaction to deliver an outward hammer fist to our opponent's face utilizing borrowed force. The reaction to this strike is for our opponent to move back and attempt to protect himself with his arms. Our striking arm now gravitationally checks down onto the rising arms of our opponent. This is to curtail our opponent's backwards movement, clear the next target and control his arms. Pivot into a forward bow to deliver the vertical punch to the solar plexus. This strike is to elicit a forward movement of such a degree that as we continue using progressive directional harmony, moving into the front crossover, our opponent's head falls straight into the elbow sandwich. From the front crossover with an elbow sandwich, progress on to execute an inward 5-finger circular claw to our opponent's face. This being a minor move that takes advantage of the Kenpo rule of thumb, when crossing the center line, take something as you go. The following 3 moves should be executed simultaneously, however we will study them here individually. The now repositioned 5-finger claw works against our opponent's head, clawing outwards, as we execute an outward horizontal heel palm to our opponent's solar plexus or ribs. The arm of this strike also acts as a check to our opponent's arm. These moves clear our opponent's body of obstructions, thus making the groin accessible to our knee strike. This knee strike threads through from behind our other leg, so by completing the step through movement of the front crossover. As the knee impacts our opponent's groin, the outward heel palm strike and check continues to circle up and above our head. On planting our foot and settling into a neutral bow, we convert the heel palm into a hammer fist, which strikes down onto our opponent's neck utilizing marriage of gravity. Keeping our hammer fist in contact with our opponent's neck, pivot into a reverse bow as we roll our forearm clockwise, positioning our opponent's head towards our leg, and immediately flow into a knee kick to his face. From here continue to front crossover, covering out to 730.
So that was clutching feathers in its basic format with the extension. In this section, we're going to look at the technique in different environmental situations. It's not good for your Kenpo to stick to the base techniques all the time. It's much better for you to grow your Kenpo by experimenting with techniques and changing them up a little bit. In this first section, we're going to look at clutching feathers done against a punch rather than a grab. The punch in this case will be a jab. So if you think of it more of a sparring technique rather than a self-defense technique, it may help you work with it. We're going to delete the initial grab and we're going to substitute it for a parry and a slip with the head. This will then allow us to employ our opponent's other hand as they counterattack. We can then change the heel palm into an outward extended block, which will allow us to continue with the technique into its base format and extension. So in this next environmental change, the victim to the attack is going to be in a different environmental position. Normally with clutching feathers, you see two people stand face to face and then action the technique. That may happen. However, there is always a chance you could be attacked from a position you're not expecting. So in this case, my partner Luke will be on his knees. Perhaps he's doing his shoelaces up when I attack with the technique. One of the things students ask me regularly about this technique is, how does it relate to somebody like myself who's follically challenged? Well, the fact that I have no hair doesn't detract from the need to understand the concepts and principles contained within this technique. In this next section, I will demonstrate the technique executed against an attack where I am wearing a head covering. And you should be able to understand that even though I have no hair, the concepts still apply to my needs in certain environments. Well, thank you for joining us on this info pod. I hope you found it of use. If you haven't done so already, please subscribe to our channel and give the video a like and a share. Well, this is Andy Seelan of Combat Fusion Martial Arts saying goodbye.